Rooftop Sports welcomes you to a special presentation of the National Football League.
That's not what he wanted to cook.
Good day, everyone. This is the Rooftop Sports, and I wish I can say that I had some good news for my fantasy football team, but that isn't the case. My fantasy football team officially has been eliminated from playoff contention for the first time since 2021. And all I can say is I am absolutely upset. It's miserable. It's humiliating. And it's just painful that I really thought with my 1-5 starts, I thought I would pull a rabbit out of a hat once again, and I thought I was pretty close. But nope. It came up short. Lost a critical game. So I'm officially eliminated. And Epic C Films, I ask for your mercy.
Well, why should I give you mercy?
I mean, because we're friends, and I lost, and we could have competed in the playoffs together. It would have been fun.
Yeah, but the thing about it is you can't always have success. They say in sports there's this thing about luck, and they say that so if your luck, once you get the luck going your way a few years, or you have luck going a certain way, eventually it's going to flip the other side, and luck's going to go against you. Good example. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs this year. Last year they were 12-0 in one-score games. In one-score games, they're 1-5 this year, or something like that. They're really bad. Their luck has gone the other way.
But come on, but I thought, friends always feel for each other. Like, don't I get any kind of mercy? Like, just like Miyagi-Do is all about that mercy.
No, because I remember you are a Cobra Kai fan, and so you believe in strike first, strike hard, no mercy.
So the message is going right back in my face.
Yes.
Well, there we have it. I have been eliminated. I'm crying like a baby. Might as well play this.
Oh, boo-hoo. Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
Yeah, so that's how it is. But either way, we still got fantasy football stuff to report. Just because my season is pretty much over where I won't make the playoffs doesn't mean that I stopped doing my YouTubing. And let's go right to the scoreboard, shall we? And before we get started, I just want to say this, that normally this video would be for YouTube members only, but for this video, especially for a very significant event that did happen, I'll make the exception and make a video available for everyone. But if you would like to see the other recaps of this entire season and even past seasons, join my YouTube membership for just $5 a month. Just $5 a month. You can see it on the banner. Or also join my Patreon if you want to see more of my stuff. Another great way to support my YouTube channel. And Epic C Films, actually, considering that I lost, I'm not going to make it to the playoffs, would you like to put in $5 and join my YouTube membership?
Not yet.
Man, it just hurts, man. Like, I forget it. Let's just go right to it and just get this over with. And here we are. Let's just talk about this. Rooftop Koreans against Dumas. So I lost 115-95. And the biggest downfall, and I think we were talking about this past week, was the fact that I put in Josh Allen against Houston rather than Dak Prescott at home versus Philadelphia. And consensus say that if I had put in Dak Prescott and Jake Ferguson, I actually would have won that game. But for some reason, I put in Dallas Goedert and Josh Allen. So once again, this seems like to be another victim of just bad lineup decisions once again. So do you think this was more of a bad luck thing? There's like no way you could have predicted, or was this just completely on me making really bad decisions?
Most people think Josh Allen is better than Dak Prescott. That's not a bad lineup decision. You deciding to go with Josh Allen over Dak Prescott is not a bad lineup decision because those quarterbacks, most people would say Josh Allen's better than Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott at best is the 10th best quarterback. Josh Allen's top 5. So you're saying like no one would have got mad at you for putting Josh Allen in. So that's just bad luck with Josh Allen not playing well. That's just Josh Allen not playing well. And then looking at the other player you're talking about, Goddard, it's tight ends don't get you that many points anyway. The difference between basically your tight ends was 6 points. 6 points means nothing in this matchup. You lost by 20, almost 21. You needed 21 points. So
the other thing that didn't help was I put in Jamison Williams as a starter, and he got me 0 points when I left Breece Hall. But the thing is, how was I supposed to know that Breece Hall was going to score 14 points up against Baltimore? And this was Jamison Williams against the Giants. So I think in hindsight, even with hindsight, you couldn't really predict how. I mean, it could have gone the other way easily too.
Yeah, but looking at it logically and looking at how things went logically, you made most of the right decisions. You chose to play Josh Allen over Dak. Okay, I get that. That no one would fault you for that. The tight ends, okay, tight ends, you expect on average to score like 10 to 14 points from a tight end, maybe 12 points. So you playing one guy versus playing a different guy, you didn't know that they're gonna have a bad week that week. So that and how do you know Ferguson's really better than Goddard? They average about the same every week. So no one would have fought you for that. Like Ferguson averages maybe 2 points more a week. That's not a lot in fantasy. And then you're looking at the running back the wide receiver situation you had. Wide receivers are supposed to score you a lot of points. This Jameson Winston guy scores 11. The guy you would have put it, that guy scored 0. And so because look at this, you're talking about Breece Hall. Breece Hall is a running back. That wouldn't have changed much because your running backs that played just as good as him. So really, it was a wide receiver decision that you made a bad decision on, and Torrey Horton wouldn't have done you any better. Your bench wide receivers were actually worse. So at the end of the day, there's nothing you could have done.
So it was
the only way you could have won potentially is if you would have played Josh Allen, but you didn't know if you would have played Dak Prescott. You didn't know Dak Prescott was going to score like 18. That would have been what, like 18 more points than the other guy, and so that would have lost. You still would have lost. So even playing him, you still would have lost.
And that just happened. I think I just happened to. And then Dumas, even he was kind of comparatively struggling with David Njoku not even scoring for the Cleveland Browns. His kicker only got 2 points, especially in the Dome Stadium, which is Dallas indoor stadium, Dallas. But he just happened to pull away, and now he is very much in contention for the playoffs. But now let's go into the next matchup. We've got a huge.
He didn't play Robinson. Robinson would have got him 30 points. So he had like one guy on his bench that would have helped him even more.
And now we got Macaroni Cheese and Belichick Yourself. And This is a very, very surprising matchup. Macaroni and Cheese, although he is out of playoff contention, he played spoiler on Belichick Yourself, 75.6 to 66. And I must say, got to give credit to Macaroni and Cheese. And this was also without the fact that he didn't even set his lineups. Like, he forgot to put in a defensive player, and he still won. I mean, how does this happen? And let's see how many players he left on the bench. Kyle Mungangai, can't even say his name correctly. I'm just going to say Kyle. And Santos, the kicker. Well, that was just a kicker. And Christian Watson. So the only changes that he could have done was if he put in the running back against Pittsburgh rather than Chris Brooks, but it was against Minnesota, so I can see why he made that kind of a decision. But either way, this was just a really bad week for Belichick Yourself. I mean, what do you think about this one?
So Belichick Yourself happened to have 2 of his big buys the same week. You see this? His buys. The other guy had 3 buys. That's true. So there's almost like a wash. They both had buys. But if you would have thought about it, okay, Belichick Yourself had the worst buys because he had his kicker, he had his quarterback and his wide receiver out. That was way worse than having a tight end out, than having a wide receiver and a running back. So his choices were worse. And finding a good backup quarterback in the meantime, well, thinking Shazier Sanders was actually going to be good is not someone you want to bank on. So that was kind of a bad decision there. And then really, like, the biggest thing for him was that his players just that week underperformed and stuff like that. But like Justin Jefferson doesn't have a guy to throwing him to him. Like JJ McCarthy is not that great of a passer. Somehow they won a championship in Michigan with him, but he's been looking bad as a quarterback. He can't even stay healthy. So that's a big problem because I think he's like 2-4 or I think he's 2-4 in starts or something like that. JJ McCarthy played 6 games this year. And so you think about that. So really he didn't have nothing. The best thing he had going for him was the kicker. And that was Jason Myers this week. And that's sad to say that that's one of your best positions and stuff. Yeah. It's just it was slightly bad luck where like players just slightly underperformed. If each player would have performed like two points better, he would have won it. Easy.
So yeah, it's pretty sad, but hey, that's the beauty of the league, right? Sometimes that's how competitive our league is. Even some of our bad teams, they will still give you a spoiler and give you something to play for. And now we're gonna go. Oh my goodness, we got to look at this. We got to take a nice look at this. RPO tank and Seattle water bottles. I think this is probably the biggest margin of victory we have ever seen. 163 to 52.4. I think this is easily like the biggest annihilation that we have ever seen. I mean, this is like an NBA score that you would think. If someone did something like that, that'd be unprecedented, but obviously, there was nothing that what Seattle water bottles could have done. Doesn't even set his lineups, but doesn't really matter. Even if he did set his lineups, he still probably would have just gotten absolutely annihilated. I mean, his players were just completely on point, like Christian McCaffrey, Ashton Genty, Hunter Henry, Darnell Mooney. So, I mean, I don't think there's really much to say. I mean, do you really have anything to say about this?
So if Seattle water bottles would have took the time to just he has that open bench spot, he could have added another bench player and then could have played that player, took Keenan Allen out because he's on a bye. There's stuff they could have done to be a little bit more competitive in their matchup because some of these players, like, you know, when a team is bad and you know that they're like never heard like Calvin Ridley and some of these other players, that's the problem when like here you look at this. One of his best players was his kicker, you know, his running back. But there was things they could have done where like they could have put one of their players. Which one was it? One of their players was on injured reserve. There's things they could have done to make their team actually better. Because I see their team right now and I'm like, okay, there was like a guy they put on injured reserve, a player they could have won. If they would have took the effort to do what normal people would do in a league instead of just doing nothing, they would be competitive. But they do this to themselves. They give teams free wins because they don't try. So there's always something you can do. And that's always, when you do nothing, it's like it's on you.
That's a sad thing about it. But hey, the guy is willing, he does pay, and he's willing to play. Well, willing to draft. But this is just it. Like, this is it's just absolutely embarrassing to watch. But I mean, what can we do? And then we got Epic Sea Films and Epic Sea Films. I am so sorry. 5-6-1, you lost to Dirty Birds, 120 to 110. I mean, why don't you just take it away and just explain your case on this one?
So my bench wouldn't have done me any better because I chose the right lineup. I think I chose a good lineup. Like, you look at my lineup, I did a good job choosing who would have been the best pieces to play for my team. The problem was that my biggest problem was the only thing that like kind of did bad for me, which was that Jonathan Taylor underperformed. That was all that to say. If he would have got what he usually got, which was 20 points, I would have won. Easy. I would have won, and I would have won by like 2 or 3 points, you know? So, yeah. So it wouldn't have been like, it would have been like 2 points or something like that. But that's the whole thing, is like I had one guy underperform. Like Puka Nacua scored 3 points less than usual. You know, some other, like Romsey Doomsday scored a few points less. There's other guys that could have stepped up for me, but they didn't step up. So, like, all my guys slightly underperformed. One guy hugely underperformed, which is Jonathan Taylor. So, at the end of the day, it's just when players don't perform well or have an off week, and you happen to have a lot of those on your team, you don't win. Like you look at his team, what did they do really good? Well, they had George Pickens overperform. That was kind of like the biggest surprise of George Pickens overperforming because they scored 13 points more than usual. That's why they won. So the difference between my guy playing bad and his guy playing good.
So it's just one of those, just happened to run into this guy at the worst possible time.
Yes, and that's been a lot of my season where I play people, and they always play good against me. Their players step up.
Now we're going to go to the Skull, the Team Skull, who is now the first seed, 144.8 to 118 against the auto draft. And if you really look at it, there's still really nothing much that he really could have done either. This was just a straight dominating victory, especially when you have Jalen Hurts, Emmanuel Wilson, and Rashee Rice just absolutely dominant. And just for craps and giggles, you had Quishon Judkins contributing as well. So this was just an absolute, just complete blowout. Like not as bad as what Nelson got, the Seattle water bottles, but still a pretty humiliating defeat for Craig. And that's why auto draft is now, he is as of now out of playoff contention in the 7th seed. So we'll move on to Fan Price. And Fan Price, he is on his winning ways, trying to get himself back into the playoffs. Looks like GGEZ is falling a little bit, falling off a little bit. 159.7 to 124.7. Looking at the bench, there was really nothing GGEZ could have done. Fan Price at 159.7, leading the way with Jahmyr Gibbs with 55 points in a game. When you get that, it's a pretty good shot that you're going to win. And the only player that probably would have lost in that way with someone scoring 55 points was Seattle Water Bottles, because he doesn't check his team. So there's not really much to say on this one. But now we're going to go into the standings. And here we are. Team Skull and RPO Tank have actually clinched their playoff spots. Now they do have games to play for while they're trying to get to their top seeds. But either way, they're going to finish. If the playoffs started today, they're both going to get their bye weeks. But here's the kicker. If it was next season, they would still be fighting for their lives to get that number 1 seed. So next season will be very interesting when we have, since due to the huge success of our fantasy football league over the years, we're going to get a couple more players to make it hopefully much more competitive. GGEZ is now hanging in the 3rd seed. Bella, check yourself, 7-5. Dumas, 7-5. And we got another 7-5 in Fan Price. But we still have Auto Draft, Dirty Birds, and Epic Sea Films still in much of playoff contention. And the ones that are out, Rooftop Koreans, that's me, Macaroni and Cheese, and Seattle Water Bottles. And the only thing that we have to play for is to play spoilers, basically. And let's go to the points forward. Epic Sea Films, you're now 3rd, but at the same time, you also allow some of the most points in the league. And GGEZ, and if you think about it, look at RPO Tank. He is the luckiest player where he is 4th in scoring, but then in points against, he has no one scoring against him. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
RPO Tank has been the luckiest team this whole league, you know.
Now let's see how bad luck that I have been, because I would like to say I have bad luck. I'm about middle of the pack in scoring and also middle of the pack on points against. So can I really say that's bad luck, or that's just the product of my team just not being that good?
I have the worst luck. One of the worst lucks, because you look at me, GGZ's team happens to be really good. So they score enough points to beat out their competition. So that's not a big problem. Okay, Seattle Water Balls just doesn't try. That's right there. So I actually have the worst luck because my points for and my points against are almost exactly even. They're like 23 points difference. That's not good. But look at this. Auto Draft, who's like in 7th place, they actually have more points against them, slightly 6 points, than actually points for them. So that's kind of another thing there. Look at even Fan Price. Fan Price is in the playoffs, but look at this. They're in the 6th spot right now, and they happen to have more points against them than they have for them. I've scored more points than them, and it's like that's the nature of the thing. Is like if this was a points for league, I'd be dominating in the league, you know, and I would be one of the top teams because I know how to get players that score a lot of points. It's just when other teams play so good against you, it is like that's just bad. Like I've had really bad luck. That's not, and it's kind of like not fair a little bit because it's like you play people the wrong week, and it's like, well, like look at the Seattle Waterballs this week. Had a guy that played 55 points on him, one player. You know,
Yeah. And now let's go into the scoreboard for next week. We've got Belichick, yourself, and Rooftop Koreans. Obviously, I am your friend in this week, Epic Sea Film. So I will try to do everything I can to win this week. And by the way, I forgot to set my lineups because I am just so down on myself for missing the playoffs. But I got to make sure to play with integrity because I think if I just left my team hanging, I would think that's very unfair for everyone else. So I did set up my lineups, and my lineup was already pretty much set anyway. So I'm just going to play it the way I'm going to play it. Then we got RPO Tank versus Dumas, which means you want RPO Tank to win this one. Then we got Macaroni and Cheese and Dirty Birds, and you would hope that Macaroni and Cheese has a little bit of spoiler in him to beat the Dirty Birds, but I doubt it. Auto Draft pretty much has a free week, pretty much. He's going to destroy probably Seattle Water Bottles. GG Easy and Epic Sea Films. I mean, you got to win this week because I think if you do lose this week, and depending how
I'm out.
everything else, yeah, you're pretty much out. So this is pretty much do or die for you.
Yeah.
And then we got Fan Price going up against the Skull. So I would say in some cases that you do have some favorable odds to make the playoffs with some teams that can be capable of beating the teams that are ahead of you. But at the same time, you still got to win your game. And how do you feel about GGEZ?
Well, so kind of the thing about it, looking back at the matchups, is the last time I played GGEZ, I lost by like 11 points, 11 point something. And that was not good. I scored 157.3 points and lost to somebody. That is like, how is that good luck? When I scored 157.3 points and lost to someone who scored 168.8. Right there, that was one of my bad things. I had a tie this season, which is rare in football to have a tie. I've had two matches. I only had, the teams that played against me, like, look at this. It's like I lost a matchup when I only scored 88 points and someone scored 93 on me. And then another matchup, like I've only scored this whole league. I've only had 2 weeks where I scored under 100 points. I've scored under 100 points 2 times this whole league. And look at this. I lost a matchup when I scored 157.3. Another matchup I lost when I scored 115.2. Another matchup I had 97.8, 120.9, 119.5, 88.3, and 110.1. You take all those averages, I'm scoring over 100 points in my losses. To beat me, you have to score like at least 115 points usually to beat me. And that's like,
you don't make it easy.
That's crazy to think like someone has to score 115 points. Like you lose because someone scores 115 and you score 110. It's not even fair sometimes with that. And so looking at the previous matchup, playing GGEZ, was that just bad luck? Let's see what happened in that matchup last time. Was that just me having bad luck, or was it just, what was it? Like, look at this. What did his team do that was so much greater than mine? He had a tight end scored 24.4 points, and he had Amon St. Brown, who you had last year, who scored 39. Do I expect him to score 39 points again and the other guy to score 25 when this tight end usually scores? Well, his tight end is on injured reserve right now. So my odds of of things going my way this time look a little bit better if I look at the actual coming up matches and stuff like that. Because look at this. Let's see. Their main tight end looks like he's injured. So I'm in a better situation than I was, than I was before. But look at this. Still, it's not going to be great. Like, let's see. Their quarterback, they have JJ McCarthy. Ooh. They don't have a good percentage there.
No, GGEZ.
Yeah, GGEZ basically has JJ McCarthy as his quarterback, and JJ McCarthy's he's on questionable for this week. So that might be another saving grace for me is if JJ McCarthy doesn't play, which he's only been averaging like 10.8 points per week, then who's his backup quarterback? He has
and he's also going up against the Seahawks too.
Yeah, and look at this. Jaden Daniels is also questionable and might not come back. So if both those guys don't come back, If both those guys don't play, he has no quarterback. He has to
So you
go free agency and pick
you
up a
think you have
quarterback.
so you think you have a shot this week?
Because, well, they say Jaden Daniels might come back this week. If he does, then it'd be better than JJ McCarthy. But it's like they're both questionable for this week. So if they both don't play, that's going to really hurt them because there anybody in free agency that's even good for quarterback. And then the rest of their team, I'm like, okay, they have JSN and they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. But that's a weird thing to think about because look at this. I have the quarterback to JSN, and do I play Sam Darnold just so that every time he passes it, they also get points when he passes to JSN, just to counteract him?
Well, there we have it. But
Yeah.
it's going to be a tough road for you, to be honest with you, for your last 2 weeks. As much as I'm rooting for you because you're a friend of mine,
Yeah.
you still got to go up against GG Easy. I think you might got to get that win. You might win that one, but at the same time, you're going to be playing against the Skull, who is one of the best teams in the league, and he still is going to have a lot to play for because he wants to secure at least the bye week so he can just breathe going into the semifinals. So there's really no guarantees. But
GG's team's even weirder. He has two guys on his injured reserve. He has Kyler Murray and so Jaden Daniels is on injured reserve. He has Jackson Dart on his bench. He has 4 quarterbacks on his team.
It's pretty strange. I mean,
it's the strangest thing ever. And like all 4 of his quarterbacks are questionable.
That's insane.
Like he has basically injured reserve and 2 injured reserve quarterbacks and 2 quarterbacks that are on like IR that are like basically he has 3 questionable quarterbacks and like 1 on injured reserve. It's so bad. His team is like they're just ridiculous. So
well, looking at the rest of so the teams that here's who you're going to pay attention to. And you got to say yes or no. Would you be paying attention to me and Belichick yourself?
Well, let's see. Let's look at the standings and let's look at the scoreboard here. Let's see the 2 things. So what's the other matchup you're saying? You and Belichick yourself. That's an important one because technically, so at best I can do right now is I can go 7-6-1. So if they keep losing, I can get ahead of them. So I need you to win. So that's definitely one I need you to win.
Well, I can't make any promises because you know that my team's been struggling throughout this entire season, but we'll see. Yeah. RPO Tank and Dumas. I think that one you'll have to pay attention to.
Well, I need RPO Tank to beat Dumas.
Yep. And then we've got Dirty Birds and Macaroni Cheese. That one's also another pay attention.
It is a pay attention, but it doesn't matter that much to me as much as some of the other matchups. You know why? Because the thing about it is, if I went out the rest of the season, I would go 7-6-1. That tiebreaker would beat all the teams that are at 7 wins. So if Dirty Birds wins this week, they'll go to 7-6. But if they lose the following week, I would basically get in. If I
another matchup to possibly look at is Auto Draft and Seattle Water Balls. I mean, the answer would be yes, but the problem is, like, what are the odds of Seattle Water Bottles actually winning this game?
Yeah. So Auto Draft potentially would win that game, but if Seattle Water Bottles somehow did. But the thing about it is that Auto Draft, if me and Auto Draft, if they won this week and then lost the following week, they go 7-6-1. And looking at the points, it'd be points 4 would be the tiebreaker. And whereas Auto Draft, I technically have more points 4 than Auto Draft, so I'd actually technically get the advantage over them. So I have the tiebreaker over them.
Then we've got GGZ against Epic Sea Films. Well, that's your matchup, so you got to do it. And then Team Skull and then Fan Price is also going to be another matchup to look at.
Well, basically my goal is that if all the teams that are at 7 or 6 wins, if they just basically end up at 7 wins and I win out, I basically am ahead of all of them.
But the crazy thing is that if all the 7, let me see what all the 7-win teams are. So if you got Belichick yourself, GGEZ, Dumas, and Fan Price, if they all win this week, even if you win, you will still be knocked out of playoff contention. That's the crazy part.
Yes.
But
if all of them do win, yes.
But the question is, like, what are the odds? I mean, let's do a prediction. Like, GGEZ against you. Like, you think you have a good shot on that one?
Yes, I do. Because they don't have no quarterback, really.
Belichick yourself versus Rooftop Koreans.
Like, more likely Belichick yourself would win that.
He just hasn't set his lineups yet. That's all.
Yeah.
And then we got Dumas. Dumas
Yeah.
going up against RPO Tank, but
Duar versus RPO Tank. RPO Tank usually scores more than Dumas, so I'd predict that RPO Tank would win that.
and Fan Price against the Skull. I mean, so I think just by the
And then
projections,
auto draft's going to go to 7. So at the Skull, like I'm looking at the Skull versus Fan Price. Let's look at that. Fan Price versus the Skull. Skull usually scores more, so more likely the Skull would win. So you would have basically the only team that's going to win really this week potentially. I might have a slightly tough matchup, but if I can pull it off, then really the only team I see winning out of those teams to get to 8 wins would literally be Belichick herself. And so if everybody else loses, then technically the best I could get is a 4 seed.
yeah. And would you say that, in your opinion, that this league has been more intense than last year, or do you think last year's was? I think last year was the best league of the year because even our bottom teams were still very competitive.
Yeah. And then going to the last week of the season, GGZ literally has macaroni and cheese the last week of the season. So they should be able to get in because they would have 8 wins, so they'd be ahead of me. So I'd be 2 teams ahead of me no matter what. So at best I'm gonna get at best maybe a 5 seed based on that logic there. And then look at Fan Price. Even if they lose this week, the next week they would play Seattle Water Bottles. So they get 8 wins automatically, whatever. So technically the best I'm gonna get is a 6 seed.
Well, there you have it. But man, still a lot of, although that I'm personally out of fantasy football playoff contention, and although that it is very disappointing. Like, this is the first time since 2021, and the last time I missed the playoffs, my real estate license was literally in its infancy. I didn't even have a deal complete yet. And this YouTube channel didn't even exist. That's how long it's been since I've missed the fantasy football playoffs. And safe to say, and also we didn't even go to that Bible study together. So it's been a really long time since I've made the playoffs. But there is one thing that I do have that many others do not.
Well, at least I'm 2022 fantasy football champion.
And no one is ever going to take that away from me, and neither will you.
Yeah. I think sometimes with fantasy sports, and this is, I think, going back to the crutch of the whole thing, is that you can try to set your lineups and do the work you need to do, but a lot of times it goes down to luck of at the end of the day, because it's like you just happen to have things go your way, and other people have things going their way, and all of a sudden you win or they win, and it's all, at the end of the day, it's luck based.
Well, there you have it. Epic C couldn't have said it any better. And Epic C Films, before we go, do you got any life advice for everyone before closing the show?
Yes. Don't drink, don't smoke, live life, and be healthy. You'll live longer.
And also enjoy Thanksgiving, which is coming up this Thursday. So if you plan to eat turkey, or if you plan to watch football, and there's a possibility that I will be very active on YouTube. I could be doing up to 3 YouTube shows. So I'll keep you guys updated. And everyone, thank you very much. And have a great day, and happy Thanksgiving to you all.
Go Hawks.
Well, at least I'm 2022 fantasy football champion.